on TaylorvilleDailyNews.com's Facebook and WTIM TV YouTube, brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville. You always do better with Landmark, and People's Bank and Trust. They put people first. Well, it's a time of year that you're paying attention to the other stuff going on in your backyard, and that includes the trees and making sure they're all healthy. And horticulture educator Andrew Holsinger knows all about keeping plants and trees healthy. Great to have you back here, Andrew.
Hey, good to be here.
So what are you paying attention to now when it comes to keeping your trees healthy in the middle of the cold season?
Well, with the leaves falling off the trees, and most of them have fallen, it reveals some of the characteristics of the tree that you don't usually see whenever you're looking at the trunk of the tree or the branches. So one of the things we think about in the wintertime is pruning. So a lot of our trees benefit from being pruned in the dormant season. And so that reveals the characteristics of the branches and can let you see within the canopy and make some wise decisions whenever it comes to pruning. But you can also see some of the results of people that have pruned improperly, and that can cause some decay in a tree.
Remind me when pruning should be done, roughly. I mean, obviously by now, I would imagine, right?
Well, actually, more towards the late winter is
okay.
A great time to do some pruning. It's
I forgive me for interrupting you.
right.
It's just that my father used to prune in the late fall, right before the winter season would come around. I guess why towards the later part of the winter as opposed to late fall?
Okay, so in the late summer, early fall, or even towards the late fall, pruning has a stimulating effect of growth. And so whenever you prune, there's buds that are below that point of your pruning. So the way plants operate is they have a hormonal balance, and there's a plant hormone in the tips of the branches. On the very tip, it's called auxin. And so that auxin suppresses the growth. And so when you remove the tip of the branch, you remove that source of auxin, and then it allows the buds that have been suppressed to sprout. And so that's why whenever people prune some trees at the wrong time, they also get a big flush of growth, and like the majority of those buds end up branching. And so that's why you need to be selective in your cuts, to where you remove the proper material at the right time, so that way you don't have too big of a flush of growth and you have all this material to deal with that you wouldn't have had to if you selected the right pruning cuts and the time to do it.
Interesting. And you also alluded to it as well, that there's it depends on the tree.
It depends on the tree, right?
Generally speaking, what kind of tree is better to prune, as to stimulate that growth toward the later part of the winter? What types of trees are we talking
So
here?
the ones that can tolerate pruning in the winter time are more your evergreen kind of trees. Like if you're going to make a holiday wreath, it's a good time to go get some holly and some of the materials that you could get in your own landscape and put one of those together. But your deciduous trees, especially your oak trees, this is going to be the time of year to be focusing on the deciduous trees, and especially the oak trees, because they have a disease called oak wilt that is spread by insects. And so the insects aren't as prevalent in the wintertime. They're going into hiding underneath the bark of trees and trying to get inside your home to escape the cold weather that's coming ahead. And so that's really the ideal time to be pruning oak trees, and some of our deciduous trees is here in the winter time.
How can improper pruning, whether that's methods or timing, impact your prevalence of, say, pests or other diseases of trees? How do those correlate?
So the pruning, it creates a wound in the tree.
Right.
So there's a branch collar that surrounds where you're removing the branch. So if you prune too close and make more of a flush cut, you remove that branch collar, and it doesn't have the capacity to seal the wound as it would if you left the branch collar. If you go past the branch collar, you're going to leave a stub, and that stub isn't going to be able to accommodate the healing process of sealing over the wound, and it'll leave a stub. And then that stub is going to lead to decay. And so it's best to prune back to a bud that's going to be able to resume the growth after you've made that pruning cut, or to the branch collar at the proper angles, so you seal that wound over. And trees compartmentalize their wounds. So it's going to try and form callus over the wound, and you want that to form as best as it can. And so just trying to make the smallest cuts you can also reduces the amount of pathogens that could enter the wound, and making good wise cuts are a lot better than waiting until the tree has all the large cuts it needs to make. You only want to remove uh, a certain proportion of the tree or shrub. So no more than probably a third of the canopy of the tree is what's going to be removed at one time. So you got to strategize on how you're going to do your pruning practices. If you've neglected to prune your trees, you may want to focus on a long-term plan. And it's beneficial for pruning because ice storms, snow, all these things come to factor in the wintertime. And so we can avoid some of this injury if we have proper pruning practices, proper structure to the canopy. We can reduce some of those risks.
What specifically, what kind of risks are we talking about here? You've alluded to some tree rot of some sorts. You've alluded to some pests. What are some specifics here that we're looking at around this time of year?
Well, one of the things that I look at whenever it comes to risks, included bark. So when bark meets to bark, there's not a great strong point of attachment. So the angle of your branches is going to make a factor, because the narrower the angle, the more included bark you're going to have. So that's why when you have a tree that has two main leaders, you're going to have more included bark, and that leads to more of a risk factor of. So usually we like to have a central leader. So one main trunk, to where if you had, especially like I've seen it with maple trees, where you have multiple leaders and then it splits apart. Pear tree is another example of one that, because of the branch angles, they succumb to storms and doesn't survive very well.
Will you see a lot of pests around the wintertime, or are they all dormant and waiting for the warmer time to strike?
They're mostly dormant, but they can, get into your home in the season. You may find the Asian lady beetles in your window sills, or things of that nature.
Asian lady beetles, are they related to ladybugs at all, or do they kind of give the
They kind
similar
of look
appearance?
they kind of have a similar appearance.
How can you distinguish them?
They're more of a yellow color, and they have special markings.
Okay. All right. I'll have to take a look here.
All right.
It's University of Illinois Extension horticulture educator Andrew Holsinger here on the WTIM Morning Show. More from him after this short timeout. You're on WTIM, your information station.
WTIM. Let's check the markets now on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jim Taylor. Corn slightly higher, beans lower, wheat trading higher. March corn 651 3/4, up 1 1/4. May corn up 1 3/4, 652 3/4. July corn 648 3/4, up 2 1/2. January beans down 9 1/4, 1473. March beans down 9 1/4, 1475 3/4. May beans 1478 down 10 1/4. March Chicago wheat 761 1/2, up 12 1/4. May wheat up 12, 770 3/4. July wheat 774 3/4, up 10 3/4. January bean meal 455 even, down 5.10. January bean oil 62.87, down 68 cents. Livestock market, December live cattle 154.05, down 45 cents. January feeders down 60 cents, 183 even. February lean hogs 82.35, down $1.05. Look at the markets on this Thursday morning. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio Network.
It's the end of the year blowout sale happening through December 31st at
your expanded local design center, Taylorville Home Source, 1316 East Park near the driver's license office in Taylorville.
Get up to 15% off all flooring. That includes vinyl plank, carpet, ceramic tile, vinyl, and hardwood.
Discount is on flooring only and doesn't include pad or installation. Buy now, enjoy it through the holidays.
The end of the year blowout sale at expanded local design center, Taylorville Home Source, 1316 East Park near the driver's license office in Taylorville.
Take advantage of Taylorville Estates Assisted Living's year-end special offered until December 31st. Lock in your all-inclusive apartment for a year for just $2,500 a month. Depending on the particular room you choose, that's a savings of as much as $750 a month. But the special $2,500 rate to lock in your all-inclusive apartment at Taylorville Estates Assisted Living ends December 31st. Stop by and visit with Administrator Tony Clark or call her at 217-824-2222. Taylorville Estates, encouraging independence, enriching lives.
Ho, ho, ho! You know who here with a special gift for your holiday season. Just in time for the holidays, your farmer-owned dairy, Prairie Farms Dairy, brings you holiday milks. Find a variety of holiday milks plus quarts of eggnog and holiday custards in your favorite grocer's dairy case. But for a limited time, holiday milks from Prairie Farms Dairy, bringing farm fresh quality from their family to yours for 75 years. Ho, ho, ho! Gotta go get some holiday milks for those crazy elves. Ho, ho, ho!
Making radio and our digital platforms work for my clients is fun. I'm Teresa Nelson, an account manager with the Miller Media Group. With nearly 30 years of media experience, I've made advertising media sales a great career. We have an opportunity for one person to join us. If you think you have what it takes to be successful in a fast-paced business and enjoy challenges, you might be the person we're looking for. One thing's for sure, there is never a dull moment in a radio station. Send us your resume for our first interview to sales@randyradio.com. We're an equal opportunity employer.
Your information station, WTIM.
Welcome back to the WTIM Morning Show. I'm Avery Cooper. Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark. People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. You'll find the streams online on the TaylorvilleDailyNews.com Facebook or on YouTube at WTIM TV. University of Illinois Extension Horticulture Educator Andrew Hulsinger in studio right now. And before he went to break and talked all about keeping good care of your trees during the winter time. Winter solstice, it's coming ever closer. And, well, Andrew, I wanted to know if there's anything else that you wanted to touch on when it comes to taking care of your trees before we move on here.
Just be cautious whenever you're investigating your trees, especially in the winter time. If you have a ice storm, we're not looking forward to anything like that, but sometimes those events do happen. And so just be cautious out in the landscape whenever you're dealing with Mother Nature, and if the limbs are weighted down with snow, it's better to be as delicate as you can with those limbs, and just be cautious in the landscape. Also, your sidewalks, if you're using salt, you may want to have a plant friendly kind of option, because some of those plants near those when the ice melts and the runoff, you can have some of that salt residue affect your plants. And some plants are more tolerant of salt than others. So be careful in your plant selection whenever you're planting near, roadways or sidewalks, things that are going to get salt.
Well, I know, let's see, gardening is typically a, spring, summer, maybe a little bit of fall activity, but that's not necessarily true. You can garden all year round. So what are some ways I can keep gardening throughout the colder months?
Well, you can bring your gardening indoors. And so you can bring lights into the aspect of keeping. And so you'll need to have your lights on longer than what you have the natural sunlight. So where you may have like 8 hours of sunlight in some of the time of the season, we're looking at maybe like having 10 to 12 hours of lights on, so where you can grow a crop indoors. And especially a good one to grow is lettuce. And so you can grow some lettuce. These are short-term crops, so it doesn't take long to produce some lettuce. And you can investigate some methods of growing indoors, like hydroponics. So hydroponics, you don't have to have soil you can grow with soil in your home, but using hydroponics, you use a nutrient solution. So all the minerals and nutrients that you need are contained in a liquid form. And so you have a pump that circulates, or you can have a more static version, but it just provides that nutrients to the root system of the plants that you're growing, and so you can have fresh lettuce throughout the season in the winter time.
Where can I find this nutrient solution?
So they do have various companies that produce it. You can go online, or if you have a garden center or a farm store, you can put together, a list of materials that you need. Some of these hydroponics systems can be made simply from a plastic tote and other materials, or you can get into PVC and build your own that way, or you can order one and have it prefabricated, and it pretty easy to accommodate growing various crops. So it's something to investigate. I do have a workshop coming up in January, and so that's going to be on January 10th in the afternoon. And Home Hydroponics will dive into it and give you some options and I'll have a setup there to show you kind of how it works and how to get started.
Definitely going to need to see the visual and how it all works, because it sounds like it's a little bit of effort to start and a little bit harder to visualize without seeing it, but it doesn't sound like it's too hard. It just takes a couple steps.
Yeah, it's not that hard. It's just keeping the principles of growing. You need, your essential things of light, the nutrients, water. The only thing that's really different is your soil, and you still have some support. Like usually you can grow in a material called rock wool, or there's other materials that could be used. But once you have your setup, it's pretty user friendly on keeping it going, and you just have to check for your problems and watch out for things that happen to any crop. But you should have a less chances of insects or disease because you're growing indoors and you're not exposed to some of the environmental factors that you have whenever you're growing outside.
You mentioned lettuce is a great option for hydroponics. What else is a good option for hydroponics?
Well, there's lots of options out there. There's kale. So if you're a fan of kale, and there's all different kinds of lettuces. Like you may think of one particular, like leaf lettuces,
Of course.
but
right.
there's others that the red sail variety. There's just all kinds that you can grow and have a diversity of what you're growing.
So sounds to me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like hydroponics is very good for leafy greens.
And they're pretty easy to grow, especially for the beginners, so there are some other things that you could grow hydroponically, but it may be a little bit more of a challenge.
I see. It's a good place to start with the leafy greens.
Right. And then, probably your more challenging to grow would be, I mean, not that you can't, but tomatoes are going to be more intensive wherever you grow them. If you're growing them indoors, they're still going to be more intensive because longer time till you get the fruit and more inputs that are going into managing a fruiting vegetable like tomato.
I see. It's University of Illinois Extension horticulture educator Andrew Halsinger. Thank you so much, Andrew. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Your stream brought to you by Landmark of Taylorville, where you always do better with Landmark and People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first. You'll find those streams online on the TaylorvilleDailyNews.com, Facebook, or on YouTube at WTIM TV.